So I'm here and I've been in this beautiful, magical place for several days, and even though I don't really have that much to do, I feel like I haven't had time to make a video. Plus, I'm not sure what the Wi-Fi capabilities are here and things like that, so I still need to figure that out. So I can't go on and on all day long like I was before, and I don't want to anyway, but I was talking about on the way down here how this is sort of like a mad park study on myself instead of rat park. But I'm seeing it's not really mad park, it's glad park, because I'm so glad to be out of the energy of where I was and in this energy where I am now. And I definitely have moments of feeling the ecstasy of the energy here. Just a couple minutes ago I saw this really tiny bird from afar on a tree, and it was so cute. And then I walked out a door and I looked to my left, and there was a bush of palm strawberries, or a tree, but it was quite dilapidated. The old palm strawberries were on there like nobody picked them. But one of them was open and I could see the little pomegranate seeds, and I hadn't noticed that before. And I was talking to someone the day before about the palm strawberries and saying I'm determined to find palm strawberries while I'm in this area. And there they were, on a tree, but not at the farmer's market that I saw. And I heard this bird swooping overhead. It was flapping its wings, and I could hear this swishing, and I'd never really heard it like that before. I don't know if it was an owl or just a really big bird, but it was super cool. And then it was raining, but it stopped raining, and I walked outside one night and I looked up right away, and there was like a zillion stars. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, stars. And oh my God, that little bird. And just these breathtakingly beautiful moments. In those moments, it's impossible to think of me and my problems. And being in this place, it's difficult to think about that. So it's really something to be in this high energy place. And I've talked about in previous dialogues with myself about how it seems like the brain power is higher in some respects in map consciousness and trance consciousness. And being in an area that's high energy, it doesn't feel like the brain is jumping beyond the context of the surrounding environment when it goes into a high energy state. It actually feels somewhat balanced here because it's a high energy place, and so all that noise of society isn't impacting me physically. And that might be hard to avoid forever, but at least this time will give my body and mind time to sort of decompress from all of that. So I'm not sure where I'll go with self-dialogue, but I feel like some of it's regarding how in the process of map consciousness and trance consciousness, one becomes more sensitive to all those energies, and maybe one needs to just be away from that for a period of time, and then one gets used to this new brain state, and it doesn't matter where one is after that. Or I definitely feel like I want to continue to capture this in some way. I made some notes on the train on the way down, and so I'm going to see if I want to talk about any of them. I have a few things to talk about from that, and some notes I made in my phone, and a few things I have to do from before I left that I haven't done yet. I feel like I want to sort of catch up and then establish a new way of going about this, whether adding to my blog or whether I'll be able to make videos or want to. And as you can see, my hair is just crazy. I didn't bring my straightener, just brought my hair dryer, so I think I'll have crazy hair while I'm here. And a little bit less makeup too. And I haven't been taking my vitamins, and I don't know if I'll need to really take them. Like, why does somebody need vitamins when they're in a pretty stress-free environment? And I talked about how I think stress depletes vitamins. And I got this really weird fruit from the farmer's market. Apparently it tastes like pineapple, pear, and kind of custardy when it's ripe. But I haven't tried it yet because it's not ripe yet. And I was making notes about some stuff about mental health on the train. And I still feel that what I talk about with myself might take on a little bit of a different flavor once I finish talking about this stuff. Because I wrote down, try to make sense of that. And the ego is that which tries to make sense of something instead of us using our senses and having our senses make sense and make meaning. Well, the meaning arises in consciousness when we use our senses. Instead of the ego trying to create meaning by chopping up our perceptions as they come in based on past knowledge. So the ego gets in the way of perception, and it has to switch just to holistic perception with all of our senses instead of just our ego sense or what our ego is trying to make sense of. And our ego is trying to make sense of what we're sensing, but it's dividing it up into little bits in order to do that, instead of allowing the whole impression to hit us and then unfolding the action from that. The ego's so busy reacting in our minds that we don't actually act. And when we switch to navigating with all of our senses, our behavior is our navigation. That's how we're moving through space and time, is with our behavior. But it's a different behavior when we're perceiving holistically than when we're perceiving egoically. And the ego is spitting out words and images, and it's like it's fishing for that continuity of that which it's fishing for. And it can only pick out those bits of that which it's abstracting and making images and talking about. And I read something today about continuity in consciousness and how the ego is this continuity, and we're afraid of the unknown, which is discontinuity. And it makes me think of map conscious and transconscious experiences where we literally feel like we're dying and coming to an end. And I think it's actually a necessary cleansing process in a way that is probably natural and might be there to help us, and is supposed to happen actually a lot more often than it even does. I feel like the words I use provoke me to navigate even more. So instead of fishing from the past, it's creating these paths of context that are possible. And perception becomes words sometimes. And when the ego dissolves, the images and thoughts of perceptions are no longer associated to this central imaginary ego thing. So they're not linear and they're not continuous. And I was thinking about how when people have a bad trip on drugs, it's usually the environment. I feel like people that go into map consciousness and trans consciousness, they're kind of high in a way, and being in regular society is the equivalent of a bad trip because the environment is not very good and sane I also was listening to something by Stephanie Seneff about aluminum, and she talks about how aluminum that is in vaccines actually accumulates in our pineal gland and messes it up. And I thought that was really interesting because it's almost like those chemicals are in there on purpose in order to disconnect us from that pineal gland, which has something to do with mystical experience and mystical perceptions. I just wanted to tell myself that, to remind myself about that. And I feel like in map consciousness and trans consciousness, we start to see and perceive as nature and Gaia, and everything else, even if it's just regular society that we're normally used to, is seen as PTSD, as something traumatic. And I feel like so-called psychosis is a sensitivity to the field of thought. All thoughts are subtle energies, and we begin to pick up on them, and we become very sensitive to them. And they can almost accumulate in us as we're moving through space and time. In that map conscious experience, we're almost like a filter or a net, catching all these thoughts and feelings around us, and then that's the net that eventually catches up with us and sort of slows us down and drags us down, and we get dragged back down to ego consciousness. And so again, when we do get dragged down in that way, we're sort of the barometer, we're the measure of what's going on. We've collected it and we've seen it, and then we start giving voice to that, and we're scared and saying crazy stuff because it's the accumulation of all that we were sort of collecting in the field of thought through our rise in consciousness in a way. And then as we come down energetically, we're starting to say those things, and then we're interpreted in a certain way. But again, when that happens, what really is required is lots and lots and lots of love. And that is what would actually unite us in a way, because we'd be loving those who saw all of that. And people that don't see that, if they're able to love the people that do, that is going to bring us all together. And so our cries for help are also cries to fix society in a way, not just fix us. And when we connect to our holistic senses are speaking instead of our ego. And it takes a while for that to not be muddled up sometimes, because we don't know what we're sensing exactly. So we're speaking in a way that can sound really muddled. So we have connected to our senses, and then a lot of times we're interpreted by the consensus reality, or the consensus, the con of our senses. And in a way, we're attempting to say something that will connect others with their senses. We want other people to see what we're saying and see it too, and be able to act on that which we see. And thought is like inner space and time. It's navigation. And the inner is meant to be for perception and connection, though currently we use it for division, for de-visioning ourselves. We're robbing ourselves of our own vision with our own voice.